Last week, we showed you our theory behind resin supports to save upwards of 60% in your resin volume. But saving material is only useful if you can effectively guarantee a perfect print every single time. In walks UV Tools, looking to help you out. It is basically the cheat code for resin 3D printing. Let's get into it. UV Tools is a program that, up until getting new mono-style 3D resin printers, I'd never used before. I'd always used Photon File Validator, and, well, it's all basically the same at the end of the day. What does this program do? It scans your parts, layer by layer by layer, looking for things like suction cups, resin traps, islands, and all the things that create failure within resin 3D printing. It's basically the cheat code for resin printing, to the point that it will even find suction cups for you and add holes where necessary to make sure that you don't get your parts cavitating. This might sound like it's not that big of a deal, but when you are riding the fine line between what is printable and what is safe, having a program like this really makes all of the difference. And even better, it's totally free and open source. And everything from built-in calibration. Yes, similar to Super Slicer, card to that video, so if you guys want to check out Super Slicer, you can. UV Tools has built-in calibration models that will be ready to go just for your printer. And one of the most valuable things, not only the edit print parameters, which lets you go through and change anything, post slicing. We have exported our model right here from Lychee Slicer with some custom parts that you might be seeing in an upcoming video. Get subscribed. If you want to learn about, if I can get it to work, because it's been tough, laminar flow nozzles for your laser. We've been working on these behind the scenes. You can go right from Lychee Slicer directly into UV Tools. Lychee Slicer can actually open it, which is pretty amazing. And it shows the Lychee Slicer team believes in this. UV Tools enables full user control of quite literally anything you could want. Everything from RAF relief, you can redraw model or supports, you can do layer arithmetic. I don't know why. I don't know what a lot of this stuff does, but it's also because I don't need it. I love that they have dynamic layer height that you can do right inside of this, so you can go all the way down to, let's say, 0.1 millimeter layers for when you don't need a ton of detail. But when you're getting those fine details of maybe your minis, you can go ahead and bring that all the way up to 0.025 or even 0.01 if you hate your life. UV Tools makes utilizing resin 3D printing so easy and effective, you might consider it my segue to our sponsor, 3D Musketeers. If you're looking to get your ideas out of your head and into your hands with full art-to-part rapid prototyping, basically make cool stuff, just not do the work yourself, you can reach out to the experts at 3D Musketeers. They have a full team on hand to help you out with whatever your project might desire. Whether you are starting from a napkin sketch or you're ready to go right into 3D printing with an STL file or even a step file, the pros over at 3D Musketeers can help you make all of that possible. With an army of 3D printers conveniently right behind me, maybe it's because I own 3D Musketeers, they can make certain that every single job is not only done quickly, but also done correctly. Resin 3D printing is not easy, and for those that understand what UV Tools does and how it helps you print better, they understand that this is quite literally taking the modifier down quite a bit. But if you still struggle with resin 3D printing, consider sending it over to the pros at 3D Musketeers. Links will be in that description down below. And maybe you're not big into resin 3D printing, and you just want to be able to kick a couple of bucks to help us make the content that we do quite a few times a week. You can do so at patreon.com/3dmusketeers, or you can join us with YouTube channel memberships, because those are a thing now as well. Appreciate you guys hanging out through this call to action. Let's get back into UV tools. I figured it would be prudent for us to show the supporting of this project. We actually covered this in the video from last week. It'll be linked in that description so you guys can find it. But I wanted to show you this process because we did all of these supporting manually for this. We'll put on screen how long this raw clip actually took so you can get an idea. But this was essentially a full build, XY, on the Elegoo Saturn with a few extra parts that don't make it into this video. Client parts and all of that. But as you can see, we're using a lot of those mini supports to help add that extra detail where you need it without using full-size supports. We're going to go ahead and export it and then open inside of UV Tools. Once we have it exported and opened inside of UV Tools is going to go through and compute all of the problems. This can take a long time. It was over 10 minutes for this part because this one had an internal suction cup that it had to drill a hole for. Yes, I knew the suction cup was going to be there, and we still printed it anyways. That's because UV Tools actually is basically a cheat code for resin 3D printing. It identified that problem and said, hey, we need to drill a hole or this thing's going to be a suction cup and potentially cause your print to cavitate. And I said, no problem, dog, you do it. And it did. And it printed perfectly without any issues at all. And that little hole in that part, and you'll see it a little bit later on in the video, we were able to fill with just one little drop of resin. So you can see once it's done doing all of its fixes, I'm going through and looking at the areas that it couldn't fix. We're using Shift to add material and Shift and Alt to go ahead and remove that material. On these particular pieces, making it all contact didn't make sense. It was easier just to get rid of those problem pixels. And yes, we are editing the pixels live. This is actually what the Elegoo Saturn that printed this part was going to see, pixel for pixel for pixel. And UV Tools will go in there and say, hey dog, we got a problem. So I decided here on that piece it made sense for us just to bridge all the way across because the next layer showed that it did. Now we're looking at some of these resin traps, and to be honest, I don't really know if the resin traps are all that big of a deal, but you can also see the hole that is in the part that UV Tools put in on its own to make sure that we wouldn't have a suction cup. That's absolutely amazing. We can see some resin traps. Again, I'm not too certain why they exist. I have a feeling it just means that you won't be able to get light inside of it to cure it, but fixing it causes a pocket, so I don't know. We do have some suction, but that is just on those first few layers, so the light blue are your suction cups. We're not going to worry about those for this one. Okay, so this time I actually remembered to not pre-cure the parts. These supports just, basically they fall off. Massive, massive improvement. So good that some of them break off during the wash cycle. And these little hairs essentially just pop off. It's right there. There's a hole, and that hole runs up into the shoulder here that was inaccessible prior to the actual print. So UV Tools made that freaking hole so that everything could be easily cleaned out, which I think is amazing, because otherwise it would have been a bit of a suction cup. These were the parts that I'm hinting at for a future video. Laminar flow laser nozzles. Again, very, very little damage. All right, the little hairs are on there, but what we're worried about is surface detail. The hairs literally scrape off with a knife. We're interested in that surface detail to know, are we losing any? Like I said in the previous video, we'll card to it, everything just comes right off. And UV Tools ensures that all of this is done right, because without it, there were quite a few overhangs and islands. Without UV Tools, none of that would be possible. Just like that, all the parts, they're out of curing, and they're gonna need a little bit of sanding still. We've got some of the little wispy pieces on there, the mini supports, but these are really, really easy to remove. The parts look absolutely amazing, and we were able to save over 50% on our supports like we talked about in the previous video. But the quality on this is amazing, and I want to point out the one with the hole in it. This is the part that has the hole in it. You guys can see it. We'll circle it on screen for you as well. That is the hole that UV tools made to go up into the arm socket of this so that we don't end up with a suction cup, because that suction cup might cause a print failure. We can see that by supporting it ourselves, we're able to put support where it's not really a big deal. Like the bottom of it's not all that big of a deal. These pieces, for those that weren't able to figure it out, are old wrestlers. I think it's Brett and Shawn Michaels, but the client for this actually is going to be reproducing this. He's got some of these older action figures and is using these resin parts as masters. So this is a great way to show it off, the technology that exists here. The curing process took about 8 minutes. The entire print took about 5 hours, and we cured it in 3 or 4 different steps. We cured it immediately after removing all the supports. We came back, removed some of the little tiny wispy pieces that were easy to come off, and then we let it cure for another 6 to 7 minutes. You can over-cure this resin, so be careful. This is Soraya Tech Fast Gray. We do really like Soraya Tech resin, but our buddy Danny over at 3D Printing Tabletop just did a video on the brand new frozen resins. Let me know if you guys want us to take a look at those, because apparently they're quite flexible without needing to dope it with anything like Soraya Tech Tenacious, which is what we do here. But these pieces came out stellar, and with the help of UV tools, it identified some of the islands that would have resulted in some poor print quality. UV tools really does make this process very, very simple. And when you're dealing with a 5 or 6 hour print, it's not that big of a deal to reprint it. However, this is over 150 milliliters of resin. So it's a lot of material that ends up being thrown away if something doesn't work out properly. Ultimately, without UV tools, we'd have a much lower chance of having those successes within the resin 3D printing process. Is Lychee Slicer good enough? Yeah, most of the time it is, but especially if you're doing the support manually, having a program like UV tools to just double check, make sure that you're doing everything correctly is tremendous. It's absolutely tremendous. These parts look great. The client's going to be incredibly happy. And I think overall, the project went very smoothly. This one did not include me curing the supports to the model before we removed all the supports. So you were able to see that it was quite a bit easier. This one will require a little bit of sanding, but some 600 grit and then some 1000 grit. No problems whatsoever. Let me know if you guys want us to do a video all about how we post-process resin prints, from the sanding and all of that. I feel like a lot of that is straightforward, but if you want to see it, let me know down in those comments and I'll be happy to make the video. And make sure you guys get subscribed, because we are doing the entire month of February all about resin printing for the main channel videos, and there are still a couple of awesome ones that are going to be coming out. Let me know down in those comments how you feel about UV tools. I'm curious to know, have you used it? Are you going to use it? And are there any features of it that maybe we should be looking at? If you do want us to look at some of those other features, let me know. We can definitely add it to maybe the end of the month video. But anyways, that's all I got for you all today. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one. Let me get the microphone nice and close so you can get that sultry voice. That late night voice with 3D Musketeers. Join our Patreon. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video, and a massive thank you goes out to all of our patrons and YouTube channel members whose names are listed right next to me. If you want to join the elite team of people that help support this channel directly, you can do so by clicking that join button right below me or heading over to patreon.com/3D Musketeers. All of the proceeds of Patreon go directly into us making better videos. So if you like the content we've been producing, go kick us a couple of bucks. It absolutely helps make this content get better and better every single day. If you're looking for something else to watch, right below me will be the entire series on resin. All the videos that we've talked about for resin printing. And right next to that is going to be our tool series. Maybe there's a resin tools video coming up. Get subscribed and leave a like if that's something that you guys want to see. I will see you all down in those comments, and in the next one, take care.